Greetings all, Ferrari-Man601 here. Welcome back to Assetto Corsa, and welcome back to another review piece, one that I was not at all expecting to have done this year, or any year for that matter, because this is Race Sim Studios' Formula RSS Supreme. And this is a car that took me completely by surprise. I have known about this car for a little while before it broke cover to the world on October 8th, 2021, but not too long before that, and, well, it's something that I was even led to believe Race Sim Studio would not do, given its macrocosmic, or so I thought, similarities between several other categories of open-wheel racing, which use cars that do look superficially similar to the one you see before you. What is this category of single-seater racing, though? Well, this is actually hailing from the land of the rising sun. Yes, we're talking about Japan, Japanese motorsport, and their premier single-seater level is Super Formula. Yeah, Super Formula, also known as Formula Nippon or Formula Nihon, depending on how you want to pronounce the native pronunciation of Japan. Yeah, this is Japanese Formula 1, if you want to think of it that way, or Japanese Formula 2, or Japanese IndyCar, whatever sort of misnomer you want to throw on this thing. This is the premier level of single-seat disciplines in Japan. And it's a very interesting series, and it's one to which I have been largely ignorant for the past few, well, shall we say, almost 2 full decades of being a crazy Formula 1 fan, and fan of basically everything else without a roof and no fenders. Well, that's what they're doing in Japan, and Super Formula is quite the kettle of fish, as I have been very quickly learning. Super Formula, well, as we have said, it is the top-level series in Japan, and, well, it is really impressive when you talk about the performance of these cars, and I'm sure we will get into that in terms of all the nuts and bolts in due course. But what is this, and why should we care about Super Formula, and why would Race Sim Studio have done something to recreate Super Formula? Well, let's just read off some of the lists of drivers' champions of the last 30 years from Super Formula. Well, we've got names such as Ukyo Katayama, Marco Apicella, Ralf Schumacher, Pedro de la Rosa, Tom Coronel, Ralph Furman, Richard Lyons, Benoit Tréluyer, Loic Duval, Andre Lauderer, Kazuki Nakajima, Nick Cassidy, and of course we do have the newly crowned IndyCar champion Alex Palou. He spent some time in Super Formula, and we've also got a very famous Grand Prix winner in Pierre Gasly. So, this is a series that really means business, and this is a car that really means business, as we are about to discuss. Formula RSS Supreme, as we see it here in the real world, it's known as the Super Formula SF19. This car is designed and manufactured by Dallara over in Italy, and Dallara, they are also the manufacturers of a great many other single-seat race cars, including all of the cars used by Formula 3, all of the cars used by Formula 2, all of the cars used by IndyCar, and the cars fielded by the Haas Formula 1 team. So this is a company that knows a thing or two about building a single-seater. They were contracted to build the SF19, and this is what they did. As the Formula RSS Supreme, as we see it here, what is this car? What does it offer us? Well, it's a single-seat, open-wheeled race car. We've got big wings topside. We have got a special under tray underneath to suck all of the air out from under the car and create an awful lot of downforce, both topside and across the bottom. Specifications in terms of engine power. First of all, what kind of engine do we have? This is a 4-cylinder. Believe it or not, there are only 4 pistons shooting up and down in this engine. You might think that a 4-cylinder really doesn't have a place in top-level racing, but I will beg you to remember a couple of things. You've got World Superbike, MotoGP, they regularly use 4-cylinder engines, and they rev to stratospheric speeds, and they produce well over 200 horsepower in their own right. You've got all of the tuners out there who largely use 4-cylinder engines in their Honda Civics, etc., and they're getting crazy power numbers out of 4 cylinders. And then, of course, you've got Formula 1 back in the 80s, A lot of those teams used four-cylinder engines, cough cough BMW, and they were producing well over 1,000 horsepower. Even in qualifying trim by 1986, allegedly, a couple of teams were pulling 1,200, 1,300 horsepower out of four-bangers, right? So four cylinders, they can do something, and a four-cylinder definitely does something here. What do we get out of this engine? We have got, via a gigantic single turbo, 550 horsepower at about 9,000 RPM. 550 horsepower at 9,000 RPM out of a four-cylinder engine. That's actually smaller in its displacement than the engine, the four-cylinder engine that's in my daily driver. Right, we got ourselves some performance here. That engine is producing 480 newton meters of torque, and when you consider that the car weighs 670 kilograms, that gives you a power-to-weight ratio of 1.22 kilograms per horsepower. So not quite 1-to-1, but pretty close. You've got the potential for a lot of performance here. Add in that you've got slick tires, big wings, and a sculpted under tray. You're talking about something that's going to give you over 4G of cornering force. Yeah. Add in further that we've got carbon ceramic brakes on this thing, just like on a Formula 2 car or a Formula 1 car. We've got the big wings, as we mentioned. We've got a push-to-pass system, much like you see in IndyCar, where they take their base figure of about 550 horsepower, and depending on where they're running, that'll be raised or lowered, given the track conditions. But they've also got a push-to-pass function, so okay, there's a commonality check. You've got a carbon fiber monocoque, you've got carbon fiber bodywork, you've got carbon suspension, you've got pushrod dampers. This thing is a proper formula car, despite having a four-cylinder engine. So don't let that fool you, because we are talking about something that's got some incredible performance potential. RaceSim Studio, therefore, what have they done with this? Just on the outside, for your €3.80 or $4.58 per exchange rates on October 8th, 2021, they give you 436,703 triangles comprising a total of 208 objects. Okay, that's a whole bunch of meaningless nonsense talking numbers. What does that actually mean? I'm going to say this outright. This is the best model that RaceSim Studio have ever made. Is it the most detailed in terms of the number of polygons? No, it's not. It's up there, but no, it's not quite the highest. However, is it the most refined? Yes, it is. Why is it the most refined? Well, we're going to see right about now. If we stop our rotation and we start to get a little bit closer, you can start to see the overall plan of this car. And, well, it's an open-wheeler of the modern era. So what are we seeing here? We're seeing that we've got front and rear wings, we have got outboard suspension, we have got wheels just hanging out there by themselves in the windstream. But, okay, wishbone push rod rather. No pull rods on this car, not on the front end anyway. Got a steering rack there, brake ducts where they should be, big slick tires, there's your carbon brake. Yeah, so, yes. We can tell what it is. The model's good in that regard. But it gets better. It gets a lot better. It gets a lot better when you start to consider, oh yeah, see that cockpit area? Uh-huh. Yeah, a lot of people don't notice cockpits on sim racing cars because, well, you're in them, yes, but you only see them from one angle at any given time because, well, you're driving and you've got to have your eyes forward. But see the little pull tabs there along the sides of the cockpit surround? Just like you have that deformable foam collar in a Formula 1 cockpit, this has got the same thing. See those little pull tabs? It's a little bit difficult to see really close up here from this vantage point, but we'll splice in a little bit of a B-roll here. You see the little frayed edges there trailing those pull tabs? Yeah, they're actually flopping in the breeze. That's the level of fastidious detail that we're getting on this car. And believe it or not, those little things matter because the little frayed edges there, you see them on the replays, right? So you're getting levels of immersion. You're getting all sorts of insane, fastidious, indescribably obsessive treatment that RaceSim Studio have always given to their cars. But this one is just another step above. Pulling out a little bit more here in the shadowed side, you can see the reflectivity of the paint here. Basically none apart from just vaguely scattering light. Why? Because, well, race cars really aren't supposed to be shiny. Yeah, it does help a little bit with aerodynamics, but the more gloss and stuff you put over top of a coat of paint, the more weight you've got. So matte finishes are in, ladies and gentlemen, and this car very much has a matte finish on it, and I quite like that. Given all of that, the reflectivity of everything, it makes sense. It's not overly shiny. There are no weird reflections or refractions going on as you see from a lot of stock Kunos cars. This thing is just clean all the way around. It's beautiful. Just the rears of the cockpit there, you can see the fuel filler nozzle. Yep, we've got refueling in Super Formula. Yep, take note, Formula 1. Very nice there. Moving around to the back, what else do we see? We see an exhaust. Yeah, just one exhaust because we've only got one bank of cylinders coming out of this engine, but the exhaust is right there. It's kind of reminiscent, believe it or not, of where they put the exhaust on Formula 4 cars. And Formula RSS 4, which I remember we reviewed many years ago now. I think we reviewed that one in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. That's where the exhaust is on the F4 car, and it's also here on Formula Supreme. Why is it there? Well, the engine is canted over a little bit, and that's where the exhaust side is. So, yep, we'll just put it there between the wishbones there, just in front of the push rod on the rear suspension, as you can see. And it just vents, and it shoots fire, and it's absolutely glorious. Rear zone in general, though, all sorts of louvers cut here. That is just for ventilation, mainly of the gearbox area, because you've got, of course, the big radiators, which are coming in from the front, as you would see on basically every other modern open-wheeler with engine mounted in the middle there. So engine cooling's taken care of there. But all these louvers here, just extracting air from around the gearbox casing. Also probably some ancillary radiators back here. Oil coolers in particular, probably for the gearbox or differential. But all sorts of stuff just cut into there. Little NACA ducts back here just to channel some more air in. That's entrained along the flanks of the car there, midship. Really, really nice. Moving to the rear here, there's a rear crash structure just like you'd see on a Formula 2 car or Formula 1 car. But the Race Sim Studio magic, it continues here. We have got ourselves, what have we got ourselves here? Can't turn the rain light on here in showroom, but these lights do work, and you'll see them when we're out on track. But beyond that, you have got, this appears to be, I want to say it's a tow bar, and it might be a tow bar, but I'm not entirely sure. This red wire there. It may be an earthing cable, grounding cable, or it might be a tow bar. I'm not entirely sure. I would think that they would hook up a tow bar here where the rear jack would go on. But regardless, you can also see these little rubberized plastic tubings there. That is for a breather assembly, probably off of, probably out of the fuel system or the cooling system. I would imagine that if there were an overpressure through the expansion tank there and the cooling, that you would get any blow-by there just vented out. Very nice. I do like all of that. Coming through the rear section there, you can see we have got more piping, I believe that is. Probably cooling loops there going back to the engine block because they appear to be going forward there to the radiators. Very nice. We've got these lights here across the rear wing end fences here on the trailing side, just like we've seen in Formula 1 since 2019, I believe they debuted. Very cool. And then, of course, your rear wing main plane emblazoned with "Send It." Yeah, what are you supposed to do in a race car? You're supposed to send it. You're not supposed to save fuel and charge batteries and all kinds of things. Which leads me to mention, we don't have any hybrid system in this car. Nope, it is just a straight-up race car. Press gas, receive performance. Neither do we have DRS. We do have push-to-pass, so that is an overbooster on the engine. It just clamps down the wastegates a little bit more, and it gives you a little bit more boost pressure. In this car, I believe it goes up to about 8 PSI on the push-to-pass. About 6 PSI there on just normal full throttle without the push-to-pass. You'll see all of that working when we get the car on track. It's really cool. But beyond all of that, it's just put together incredibly well. We have a number of Easter eggs that we can show you on this car. First of all, you see the front wing there. Press 0 on the number pad here in showroom view, and you can see the flaps there on the front wing. They go up and down. And okay, we've seen things like this on open-wheeled cars before in Assetto Corsa. We've seen VRC do things like this, and Race Sim Studio themselves have done things like this before. But do you see the adjuster here in the end fence here? We're looking here at the left front end fence of the front wing. Just have a look. Keep your eyes toward where you can see the numbers that are going up from bottom to top, 1 through 6. take a look at where the number 6 is. Look just forward, and I'm going to press the 0 key. Yeah. You see the flap going down, and the flap going back up now, but you also see the bolt. Obviously, these flaps are adjusted by removing a set screw, or bolt in this case, and then they're physically pushing them up and down to change the wing angle. At least they're doing this in the garage. There may be quick adjustments for pit stops. But that set screw has to hold everything in place, which means that you're going to have to remove it. You're going to have to move your flap around, align the hole, and then put the set screw back in. That's exactly what's going on here. And this isn't just a showroom thing, because, yeah, a lot of modding companies, Race Sim Studio included, sometimes they put things in showroom view that are not accessible when they're out on track. They're just there for show. They look really cool, but they don't do anything. This actually does something. When you change your wing angle in the setup screen, in-game, on track, you can zoom in and you can see that this bolt is in a different position depending on where your wing is. It's absolutely wild. And there it is. It's a first for Race Sim Studio, and it's a first for Assetto Corsa as far as I'm concerned. I don't believe anybody's done anything to that level of detail before. Similarly, you have got, we removed the halo there. Halo's removable, by the way. Didn't mean to do that. But halo is removable. Press the number 2, and you can see that the car is now there without halo. To be perfectly frank with all of you, I've driven the car with and without halo so far, and I honestly don't care either way. It has no bearing on how I'm looking at this. It has no bearing on how I'm looking through the cockpit, looking ahead. No difference whatsoever. You be the ultimate judge on what you consider the aesthetics to be. To be perfectly honest, though, I don't care. I have no preference whatsoever as to whether or not this car has a halo. Never thought I would say that going back to 2017, but I said it, and it's true. Similarly, what I did want to demo here, though, is that the rear wing also changes its angle when you press some buttons, and I'm currently endeavoring to figure out which button it is, as I am attempting to forestall here. Which button is it? Number 3 doesn't do it. Number 2 does the halo. Number 1, yes, there we go. Main plane goes through all of its steps of adjustment, and similarly, it's a little bit more difficult to see, but you see where the, it's a flower with a water droplet? Yeah. See those bolts going up and down as the flap angle changes? That happens here in showroom. It also happens out on track. It's absolutely wonderful to see all of that. Whew. Hats off. Absolute hats off. Another thing that you'll be able to see on this car, and we'll demo this out on track because I'm led to believe it's supposed to work there as well, but in showroom, you can see over top on the roll structure there, the air snorkel doubles out the roll hoop, of course. You can see that we've got this red box. That is the onboard camera. When we press the number 7 key, yes, it is the number 7 key, you can see that we can move this camera around. Just like we see, particularly in IndyCar, when they're on board, you can see that the onboard camera, it will pivot to show you what's going on around the car that we're riding with. This one does the same thing. You can see the whole camera and its fairing. It all moves over. It seems like it only turns left here, but you can see that that moves. The fairing moves with it, as it should, and underneath it's just exposing some of the hardware. Again, it's a little bit difficult to see from our vantage point. But we have a moving onboard camera on this car. I don't think that it actually rotates the camera view that you get, either on track if you want to drive from the roll hoop view or in the replay. But it physically moves, you can see it happen, and it's just ridiculous that you've got this level of detail. It's wonderful stuff. Looking at the wheels here, we have got these glorious designs, and they are actually interchangeable for the first time on... Yep, there we go. That's what the number 3 does. For the first time on a Race Sim Studio mod, and maybe for the first time ever on an Assetto Corsa mod, at least one that I've been aware of, you have 2 different wheel types that you can choose. We've seen wheels come off of these cars before from Race Sim Studio, particularly in showroom view. I remember... Formula RSS 2 did it. Formula Hybrid 2017 did it. RSS 2000 did it, but it's not a common thing, but it's there, and they've done it before. But for the first time, you can change the wheel style. They are a bit different. We have got this one here. Yep, the default style that you'll see clearly. These are modeled after a Bridgestone BBS wheel, but RSS happens to work very conveniently in the space provided, so that works. And we've got these. It's not a twin. It's not a split rim, but it's cool. And you've got those smaller and more multitudinous spokes. And here we have got, I believe that's a 10-spoke design. I haven't counted them, and I'm not going to. Destroy me in the comments if you want. So you've got two different versions of wheels that you can run on this car. When you're out on track, you don't see this at all. In the replays, though, you do see them, particularly if you're doing slow-mo stuff or standing starts, things like that. It's very cool. I like all of that immensely. Inside the wheel detail, though, there's our wheel nut with the weathering on it, so you can see where the paint has been knocked off by the impact gun. You can see, obviously, into the brake disc, the carbon disc, as we said, with its mounting plate there holding it down, and the gigantic, probably 6-pot or 8-pot calipers there with their temperature witness stickers there, just to record the peak caliper temperatures. You've got the valve stem there for putting air into the tire. It's ridiculous. The tire itself, we have got great detail on it. We've got the sidewall and the sidewall lettering, of course. This one, of course, mounted to the left front, so it's so marked, LF. We have Premata, who is actually one of the developers of this car, an out-of-house race sim studio consultant partner, I suppose. But he's got his name on the car, on the number 1 car, as well as on the tires here. And then we have got drive fast or go home, ellipsis, send it, on the sidewall there, embossed. Very, very cool. Tread surface, it's a slick, so not all that much to see, but great serial markings there. Those would be, I believe, just stamped on there in ink, and then obviously that would be worn away pretty fast as the car is rolling around. But you can see that we've got all of that. We've got some mold marks on the tires as well. And of course, all of these were painstakingly thought up and modeled and implemented into the sim, mainly, I'm led to believe, by Race Sim Studios chief 3D lead, CC, who is an absolute artist, and he's done most of the Race Sim Studio cars over the years, and yeah, he gets better and better. What can I say? Looking down there into the cockpit, though, midships on the monocoque. First of all, we've got an antenna or two, pitot tube and an antenna. Got some hatches there for servicing the footwell. And then we've got the backside of that steering wheel in there. Seat belts, all kinds of crazy things. We can go into the cockpit if we so desire. Sitting a little bit high from where my driving position is, but this is the default driving position. I wanted to go a little bit lower and a little bit further rear so I can get at least some view into the mirrors, but this is where you will sit by default, and you'll be able to see everything here on the steering wheel. Of course, the car is not alive right now, but we have got a highly digitized steering wheel with a big screen in the center, so basically these steering wheels have grown iPhones over the last 5 years or so. So think of that what you may, but it's great. Obviously very heavily modeled after the Cosworth steering wheel that is run in Super Formula, and many IndyCar teams also run a steering wheel that looks quite like this. Formula 2 also runs a steering wheel. It's a little bit different from this, but generally similar. So yeah, very authentic in terms of the detailing that we've got. Looking down in the cockpit, there are your seat belts, Race Sim Studio, except no imitations. Your seat belt hub there. The lap belts there, the crotch strap, and the shoulder harness coming down there for a proper, would you call that a 5-point or a 6-point? I will let you be the judge of that. Interesting to see that the little, I'm not entirely sure what you call them, but the things that say Race Sim Studio except no imitations, they're not attached to the belts. Those would be the things that would go over the shoulder belts. I don't know if you would just call them pads or if they've got a particular bespoke name to them. I know that I've used them in the 5 seconds that I've actually driven a race car, but I don't know what you call them. But they're there, and they look really cool, and obviously you would be running them through the straps, and they would sit basically in front of the driver's shoulders there once he's strapped in the car, and you see that with the driver model as well. I should mention the driver model at this point. We've got a bespoke driver model for this car. For the first time ever from Race Sim Studio, they've made their own driver. And this is something that is allowing them to throw in the details that they want. They are able to make eye points match up a little bit better in terms of what you see in replays. If you like to use the cockpit camera on replays, it certainly makes things look a whole lot better with the helmets that they've got in this car as well. And again, with the B-roll going on here, you can see that. They've got aerodynamic fairings on the helmet now that they haven't really been able to implement before, and they're just having the attitude of the driver more representative of reality in the cockpit. The way his arms move across the steering wheel has been revised, and just everything is just that much more refined on this car, and it really conspires to create something that's utterly magnificent. Anyway, going back to the steering wheel, you can see that we've got a lot of data to look at. We're going to have our current lap, we're going to have our lap time, we'll have our last lap and our best lap, we'll have RPM, boost pressure will be there, our gear position indicator, speed, fuel level, and you're even able to keep track of your push-to-pass allotment. You get 10 uses of the push-to-pass in this car, and you can watch it tick down as you use it here. It's fantastic stuff. If we leave the cockpit for a moment, we'll get back in there later to take out some more detail looks of some things, but I do want to show the skins that are available for this car. Going back to skin number 1, this is the number 1 car, and then we have got Mr. Primata there, who got the honor of getting number 1. And also something on this car that has become a little bit of a meme already. Yes, we do have the anime girl. We have the RSS girl, as she is officially known. She has got some RSS Supreme gear, and you see her on the monocoque, you see her on the rear wing end fences as well. It looks like we have got "Send It" written across her sleeve as well. I have got already into a couple of, not arguments, but some tongue-in-cheek banter on the Race Sim Studio Discord about whether or not this car would be considered kawaii or a waifu, but yeah, that's what we have got on this car. It's really cool, I like it, it's fun, and it's just something unique, and yeah, this artwork was done exclusively for Race Sim Studio, probably at some rather significant expense on their part, so I do very much appreciate it, although you won't see me running the waifu skin anytime soon. But continuing here, we have got a whole assortment of skins, and on these skins you're going to see the names of some Race Sim Studio personnel, as well as some, shall we say, server boosters. Yep, that's really who got to be on this car. It's who got to be on the revamp of Formula Hybrid 2017 as well. And I really appreciate Race Sim Studio doing this, because we really appreciate you. We know that a project like this is so intensive in terms of the resources that you have to put into it, monetarily, in terms of the time that you guys spend. This car was, I believe they started working on this car in 2019, and then you know what happened in 2020, and it is October 2021 and they released this car. So we're talking basically 2 years of development time on this car for a team that is mainly comprised of 2 full-time employees, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know. That's absolutely remarkable, and the fact that you allow us to ask you kindly to put our names on your cars is something just great. It really is. I'm recognizing basically all of these names here. Mr. Pendry, Herr Haumann, Wooly, I don't know you by name, but I'm sure I've talked to you before. Herr Keimer, yes, very cool. Klaus, there you are. Klaus, who is a motorsports photographer. He has done some PR material for Race Sim Studio in the past, including for this car. He's got his name on this one, and he's got a bespoke skin as well. How are you doing, Klaus? We have got, I don't know who Mr. Lopez and Mr. Tilbury are. Kaito, Kaito. I think I know you. W. Gricko, who are you? Hi, Chuck. Moroz, Keller, Waldron, Edelman. Very, very nice. I like all of this stuff. I haven't actually seen all of these skins yet, so this is kind of new for me as well. Mr. Duffy! Yeah, there he is. Hello, CC. I like it. The matte black, well, gray, I guess. Nice. Like it. Like it an awful lot. And, yeah, you get 23 skins with this car, I think. Counting number 1 as... Or you get 24. Can I count? Yeah. 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, you get 24 skins with this car. I happen to be number 13, car number 47. Very, very nice. And this is not the first RSS car I've been on by any stretch of the imagination, but it's always very cool to be given the opportunity to get on one of these cars. And, you know, I sincerely appreciate it. I really do. And to think that, you know, maybe some people out there will have driven a car in the virtual world with my name on it is quite humbling. So very, very cool. Number 47 per my request as well. Thank you very much. A couple people have asked me, what is the number 47? Why is your number 47? It has nothing to do with Mick Schumacher, and I'm a little bit miffed with Mick Schumacher for having stolen my number because I was using it first. But 47, it is an allusion to the birth year of my grandfather, who was born in 1947, and he is the person who is responsible for me being an absolute car nut. So that's what it is. It's a little tribute to him. And I know that he would be thinking that all of this is just so damn cool. So that's why it's there. And I even share a name with him. So it's really his name on these cars as well. So that means a little something to me for what it's worth. However, if we want to continue our last train of thought, I'm really, really out of it today. I apologize. But going back into the cockpit, if we will get there, it appears that we're taking the scenic route, but I like it nonetheless. Yeah, great overview of the rear end there. That pipe has to be for cooling. It's got to be. There are the chimneys over the top. We neglected to mention those, but they're there. Diving in there. All right, back into the cockpit. We can go free cam now, and the reason why I didn't want to do this first is because when you go free cam in showroom view, you lose your cursor when you try to get out of it. So we go free cam. Obviously, we are really crazy zoomed in now, but we can start to get into where the cockpit really shows its stuff. Have a look at this stuff. Obviously, brake bias here. EPS, I'm not sure what EPS is, but switches for the electrical system, no doubt. Fire extinguisher, all that kind of thing. Scrutineering past. There it is. Formula Supreme. Is that LMT, I think it's supposed to be? ACS, don't know what that means. Maybe one of the RSS guys could explain that to me. 1021, obviously October 2021 when the car was released, and the Race Sim Studio logo. Carbon texturing here. This is... it's gotta be, yeah. Another thing that we were talking about on the Race Sim Studio Discord was the carbon texturing, and I believe this is the first implementation of it. They've bothered to model each cell, as it were, of the carbon. You can see how this material works. It's woven fabric, and it's woven at angles 90 degrees relative to the weave next to it. And you can see that's where it's getting a lot of its rigidity from. But you can see that they have bothered to model the individual strands of the carbon. And you're seeing it there. And when you pull out, it just allows the light to fall over all of these areas in a way that's so much more convincing. I mean, look at this. Just look at this. That's special. And then it just disappears into infinity. But really, that's cool. That's really, really cool. Over here, I'm not sure what these posts are. That's probably for a crash structure. Probably the lateral impact structure, I would say. Looking around to the left side of the bulkhead, there it is. RSS Supreme, serial 19. I don't know what the 19 is referring to. I don't know if that's referring to the conception year, because they started work on this car in 2019. It might be that. Is this the 19th single-seater that Race Sim Studio have produced? I don't think it is. I know they've produced a lot of them, but have they made 19? Really? I'd have to double check that. But my guess is that stands for 2019 when this car was conceived. But always a very nice touch that RaceSim Studio have the chassis plate on pretty much all of their cars. Love it. There's the emergency fire extinguisher and kill switch. Looks like ignition, rain light. Very, very cool. The footwell, we got pedals in this one. They are they 3D modeled? Yes, they are modeled in 3D. They're not very detailed, but you can tell that they're actually here. Yeah, not the greatest pedals I've ever seen, if I'm completely honest, but who cares? You don't see them, but they're here anyway. And you can also see that they have done with the texturing. They've obviously worked off of photographs for this, and they have tried to model some of the hardware via photograph of what would be just beyond the pedals there with some of the front suspension there. I believe these are the anti-roll bars mounted vertically, or torsion bars really is what they would be, and the steering column as well going down to the steering box in front. You can see the hydraulic slave cylinder here for the brake in that photograph, so that looks really cool. I like all of that immensely. Coming back forward to the seat, we've got this texturing on the seat here. Obviously the seat is carbon, but sometimes they're wrapped in a suede or Alcantara sort of fabric to try and increase the friction to hold the driver in place, and also for some padding there for support and for comfort. So all of that's there. Then moving up to the steering wheel itself. Have a look at this. This is obviously the left-hand grip, and yeah, I could touch that. Honestly, I know what that should feel like. If I could reach through the computer screen and grab that, I know what that should feel like. That's the fidelity of the texture work there. Yeah, it's special. Obviously, you've got all the buttons here labeled, modeled separately from the wheel itself. No stick-on textures here. Everything is in 3 dimensions. The thumb wheels are there. There's a neutral button. The rotary switches here for the engine and pedal maps, the throttle maps, the torque override, your shift maps, all kinds of stuff. Absolutely great. Acknowledge switches, kill switches, start switches, more map switches, radio, rotaries. There's the grip again. It's fantastic stuff. There's the padding that protects the driver's knees. That's all there. The steering column, the quick release, and all of the mil-spec plugs on the back of the steering wheel for your electrical connections and for your water insulation. Because remember, open-wheelers, they race in the rain, except in Belgium. And it's all here. The paddles, the clutch paddles, the gear shift paddles, everything is here. And these paddles, by the way, are animated. I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe that we have got ourselves the switch hardware inside as well that's been modeled, and part of the animation for articulating this stuff is determined by the mechanical behavior of the switch. So that's cool. We have got a scrutineering or homologation sticker here. Let's see. 6921. Nice. Yep, serviced by RSS specialists. Yep, 6921. So, using the European date scheme, is that 6 September 21, or is that American parlance of 9th June? I don't know. Regardless, it was somewhat recent. I like all of that. And again, that's just more detail that you don't necessarily get anywhere else. Yeah, there's some of the switch gear behind the paddles there for the upshift. Wild. Absolutely wild. There's your camera. I can't remove this in this showroom, but in Content Manager, if you go into the CM showroom, this is removable. The outer fairing is removable. And inside here, if we can maybe sort of morph into here, we can get a glimpse. There we go. They modeled a camera, right? This is an actual consumer-level digital camera that you can buy, and they've put it inside this fairing. There's an SD card in it. You can see the power supply. That's an HDMI output right there. That's a screen showing shutter speed, the f-stop, white balance, and the ISO, battery level, and the shooting mode there. It looks like this one's going to be shooting stills right now. But they bothered to model a camera. It's an actual recognizable, readable camera with an SD card inside. And it's covered up. Like, that's it. You don't see it at all, except for the very front there with the lens. But it's there. Find me another sim racing product that has a true-to-life looking digital camera on board. That's something. That's really, really, really something. But anyway, enough of all of this. It's been 40 minutes of rambling on with no particular order to my discourse, which is very sloppy for me. I apologize. But there's just a lot here, and I'm very excited about it, so we got to go drive it right now. Bye. Welcome to Suzuka. Yes, I figure that the most appropriate venue to review a car like this, exclusive to the motorsport scene in Japan, is going to be Japan's arguably premier circuit, Suzuka International Racing Course. And, of course, Suzuka has been historically the venue for the Japanese Grand Prix since 1987, I want to say. Unfortunately, we haven't seen the Japanese Grand Prix in a couple of years because of all sorts of things. However, we're here today, and we have got Formula Supreme booted up here in the pit lane. As always, a look through the setup screen before we go out on track to show you what's going on here with our default setup. Our gears. I neglected to mention in the showroom view that we have got a 6-speed gearbox. It is a sequential paddle shift unit, so just like you see in Formula 2 and IndyCar. We've got 6 ratios in the box, and they are adjustable to our heart's content. Unlike many open-wheelers today that have fixed gearing for the duration of a season, Super Formula, apparently, they can't choose their gear ratios. Therefore, we can choose our gear ratios as well. All the default values are here shown. Tires, we have one tire here. It's slick, soft. How soft is it? Well, you can be the judge, but it does have an awful lot of grip, and it appears to be pretty consistent over longer runs, although I've yet to do properly long runs in this car. Perhaps we'll do that here today. Default tire pressures are shown here as well, 15 psi to the front and 13 psi to the rear. The range of adjustment is between 10 and 28 psi, so you can get a sense of what you have there to play with. Fuel, it is zeroed out to keep the engine quiet, but maximum fuel capacity for this beast is 125 liters, so you can get a sense of what your fuel capacity is and generally what your fuel burn rates are going to be. They do refuel in Super Formula, and you can refuel here in your pit stop, so you can play with that fuel strategy as racing should be. Aerodynamics. All right, we've only got the adjustments here on the front and rear wing, but you'll be able to see presently that if we play with our adjustments, here is that adjuster again that we took a look at in showroom. Take a look at where the bolt is, and as I crank down on the front wing, you can see that not only the flap angle changes, but the location of that bolt also changes. So this is live in-game, and you can see that all of these changes are visually represented here in real time. It is very much the same story here on the rear wing. As we change our flap angle, you'll also be able to see that bolt changing its position. It's absolutely crazy that we can see all of these things happening here, but there it is. And, well, RaceSim Studio, they are no stranger, and they do not shy away from fine detail. That is about the finest detail I have ever seen on a sim racing product. Brakes, we have brake bias and brake power. Default values are 52% to the front on the bias with 100% on the brake power. Of course, you can adjust all of this as well. Brake bias ranges from 45% to 62% to the front axle there, and brake power you can go down to 70% or all the way up to 100, where I like to keep it and where RaceSim Studio apparently recommend that you keep it. Differential in power coast and preload. It's a pretty stiff differential here by default, but you can bring the power and coast settings all the way down to 5% if you so desire. Likewise, the preload can be dropped from 60 Newton meters down to 0, or it can go all the way up to 200 Newton meters. So quite a large range of adjustment there for your differential settings. Very, very interesting. Suspension, camber and toe on all 4 corners with default values shown. Of course, you can play with this to your heart's content as well. Left front tire making that adjustment there, and you can just see that angle change a little bit visually. It's difficult to see because we're really talking about a small adjustment, but it is, of course, represented here visually as well as with the physics model in the sim. Tow on all four corners as well, and that's a little bit more of an apparent change there on our left front as I'm playing with the settings. But yeah, you can see all of that running 0 on all four corners by default. Suspension screen 2 anti-roll bars front and rear are available for adjustment, as well as ride heights, travel ranges, and wheel rates there on all four corners. Dampers for your fast and slow, bound and rebound on all four corners. Default values all shown there. And the bump stops on all four corners as well. Under various, you've got steer assist 85 right now. You can bring that up to 200. I never play with this. I'm not entirely sure what it does. I think it's a power steering setup, but you know, I never touch it. It always feels fine as far as I'm concerned. Here's where we get a little bit more things to play with, though. Under visuals, you can see that we have an option to remove halo, so we can take halo off and it just seamlessly disappears, and you've got a completely unencumbered, unobstructed view ahead if that's what you want. Wheel shop, though, this is a new setting. By select step 1, you can see that we can change our wheel style here out on track. That's all well and good and a very cool touch. The last thing that we didn't mention in showroom view, mirror angle. Take a look at the reflection in here, and as I jump through this setting, you will see that the mirror angles, they change in real time. That is the glass moving, and it's not the fairing itself. That is the inset glass moving, and it's moving the reflection around as you so desire. So when you're in the cockpit, if we can go into the cockpit and take a look at this, you can actually see this change. If we go into free cam and move into the cockpit, it might be a little bit easier to see. Yeah. I have the real mirror mod running right now through CSP, so the reflections of the car itself will actually change in there, but you know, you get the idea. It's a really cool touch. Like that an awful lot. If we go in-game proper and we go into the cockpit, now you can see that everything in here is alive. We have got the car powered up, no fuel on board, of course, but we have got the display running. We have got, across the top line, we have got our lap count, so lap 1. Our current lap time is ticking away just past 7:08. Below that, we will have our last lap and best lap times. Second line, you're going to have engine RPM represented numerically, boost pressure in pounds per square inch, and then our gear position indicator currently reading neutral. Of course, that reads all the way up and down through the box up into 6th gear, as you can see, and then, of course, all the way back down through neutral and into reverse. Unlike a lot of other cars from RaceSim Studio and other modding teams, there is no lockout on neutral in this car, and I actually prefer that. I like being able to drop a moving car into neutral. However, that means it's possible to drop a moving car into neutral. So when you're coming down through 3rd into 2nd, and if you do use 1st gear during a lap, just be mindful that you don't click that left paddle one too many times. Otherwise, you will find a box full of neutral. Below that, we'll have our speed reading out here in metric, so clicks for us, and then we'll have our fuel level, and that updates in real time. That goes down to the hundredths of liters, so you'll see that tick down pretty much constantly whenever you're on a power. Below that, we have got our push-to-pass, so you can see that reads 10. So I've got 10 hits of the push-to-pass button, and then to the sides of that, we have got lights. It's showing yellow right now because that is our low fuel status light, but you'll also get a delta. You will get green lights and red lights depending on whether or not you were above or below your best lap delta. So we've got a lot of information on this steering wheel. Very cool. The blue lights that you can see flashing in the upper corners of the display, they are your pit lane speed icon, so you can see the pit lane speed limiter is active and we're flashing blue to signify that. Across the top, that light bar is your shift light. So you've got RPM. They will go from green to red to blue. When the blue lights come on, you're getting close, and then when you really get up to the rev limiter, they all turn bright red and they flash at you. So shift at the blue or shift at the red, whatever you want to do, but they are there. Rest of it, though, great steering wheel, great animation in here with the driver's arms. You can see that the custom driver model has allowed RaceSim Studio to revise the hand behavior a little bit. I do like all of that. The driver's hand, it comes off of the low side, or really the high side of the steering wheel, as you're turning really into full lock. So basically, once you get past about 90 to 100 degrees, whatever hand is on the low side at that point comes off of the wheel entirely, and that's something that's a little bit new. I like that the hand doesn't stay crossed in front of the wheel, it just drops down and it's out of the way. So I like that an awful lot, and again, that custom driver model is what is allowing RaceSim Studio to do that. So all of that is well and good, but we want to know what this thing actually does out here. We've got Suzuka to ourselves, so we should probably get on with that. We're just going to load up the default setup and do some running with that. Default. Boom. So 30 liters on board to start with. Completely default. And we'll see what it does. We got the pedals in the lower left, and then that's about all the on-screen graphics that we should need, because you should be able to see everything else via the steering wheel. Clutch in, we'll raise the revs a bit. Clutch is very progressive, and it bites early, but it doesn't bite terribly hard. So it's very easy to get this thing underway. Up into 6th here, no tire warmers. You can use them, but I'm not using them because I don't like them. And we'll just get ourselves up to temperature here. The S's, I love them. Everybody loves them. Everybody loves Suzuka for that matter. It is just a fantastic circuit. It's a proper old-style racetrack. Unfortunately, a little bit of an endangered species. Get some heat into the brakes a little bit. And really in here, as we're coming up to speed, just take a look in this cockpit. Just take a look at the view you get out of it. Take a look at the way the light scatters down there toward the footwell. Those carbon textures that we remarked about in showroom view, they really come into their own in the sunlight. It just looks so inviting and so immersive in here. Undoubtedly, this is the most convincing cockpit view that I've ever gotten in a sim racing car. Just immediately puts me into the mode of wanting to go fast. Let's hit full revs here. Down, start, finish. There we go. Hit the reverberation between the grandstand and the pit lane. That is a very, very pleasing noise. Just a 4-cylinder engine, remember. But it sounds real good. It sounds like it means business. But at the same time, it sounds awfully familiar to me. I mean, I drive a 4-cylinder in the real world. And of course, it doesn't rev quite as high as this, and it doesn't have nearly as much horsepower as this, but it sounds familiar. I kind of understand what this engine is doing. Go, you saw the light bar across the top turn red when we got up against the limiter. You can see what that looks like. I tend to shift at that point as well. All right, the tires are getting to a point where they feel happy. Brakes will take just that much longer, but not too much. Brake a little bit early. Get the last bit of heat into them. And off we go on a first proper flyer. 1:45.313 was that time by. We're going to be beating that, I promise you.
into turn 1, making sure Fisichella isn't there on the inside. On the power in 4th gear. Into 5th, that was a short shift. Really, this will be in 4th gear once we're really going for it, all of this. Out of the S's there. Make sure you don't wash out wide there on the exit because you'll find the gravel very quickly. The Degners, proper corners these. Underneath the run up to 130R to the hairpin. Second or first gear here. I tend to like second. Down the back straight sweeper, as it were. Into spoon. You can hang on the throttle so long there. And hard over those exit curbs. You can use the green concrete on the outside if you want. Coming up to 130R. Over top the Degners. Just throw it in once. The car has tons of grip. On the brakes hard. Into the triangle. There's your exit, a little bit of wheel spin there, getting back on throttle, but no problem, really. 139.077, our first push lap there on lap 3. That's much more like it. So now that everything is properly up to temperature and we're properly going here, what are we feeling? Well, aside from all the visuals, which are doing a fantastic job of putting me in the zone, this car is amazing. Now, why is it so amazing? Well, first of all, you have got that great soundscape going on behind you. That certainly goes a long way into making you feel like you're in this race car. But how does this thing behave? As you can see, I am not really having to give the car too many corrections. Why is that? Because it doesn't need them. This thing is solid as a rock. You have grip everywhere. First of all, you got those big slick tires, which are effectively Formula 1 tires, okay? So you've got that going for you. And people, we all complain about Pirelli. I complain about Pirelli constantly. I don't think a day goes by when I don't throw curses and aspersions in the general direction of Pirelli. However, you've got a gigantic racing slick out there on all 4 corners. It's got huge contact patch. It's got huge compound on it in terms of when it heats up, it really grips in and it moves the earth underneath it. So you've got a lot of mechanical grip. Add to that, you have got a ton of aerodynamic grip. You've got 2 gigantic wings topside on this thing, and you've got an under tray that's designed to exploit to some degree the principle of ground effect. When you combine the aero and the mechanical, you understand that you've got a car that's going to put out 4+ G a cornering grip, and it weighs 670 kilograms. Which, I hate to tell you, is about 100 kilograms lighter than a dry weight Formula 1 car. So even though we're talking 550 horsepower or so, you've got a car that, in terms of agility, is better than Formula 1. But it's got all the same tools available to Formula 1, minus the hybrid systems and DRS, but nobody likes them anyway. So all this stuff combines to make a car that is unbelievably sure-footed everywhere. In the slow-speed stuff, the tires are there. In the high-speed stuff, as you can see, I mean, watch this. Down 2 gears and just launch it into spoon, and it grips all day long. A little bit of understeer on the front axle, but to be honest, it's not bad at all. It's actually a little bit welcome because it lets you know that the thing is not just a slot car. I mean, it will break free. However, it has a very wide performance envelope before anything strange happens. So, provided that you understand that, and we will break it free here intentionally a couple of times just to show you that it can happen. Provided you understand what's going on, and I'm about to do a Timo Glock. Yeah, you don't go onto the gravel there. Timo Glock did that in 2009 and hurt his back. Which is how Kamui Kobayashi Another Japanese driver got his start in Formula One. However, provided you keep it on the road, you have got a colossal amount of performance. Through the S's here, you can see that my steering angle doesn't change very much. My throttle application is what's turning the car right now. And it's so progressive. I love throwing this thing into spoon. Holding a little bit of throttle the whole way. On the brakes, which are extremely powerful, but very progressive as well, and very forgiving. It's very difficult to lock up a front brake in this car. Yes, it happens. It absolutely can happen. But if you've got any sort of competence in open wheelers, you understand how to use the brakes. You understand that you can start hard, and then you got to start ramping off pretty quick as the speed drops. Provided that you do that, you're not going to lock up these brakes too easily. Look at that. That is so much grip. Launch it into the digners there. Hit those apex curbs. It doesn't care. A little wide on the exit. That's okay. Into the hairpin. Slam those brakes. Come off of them. Drive it to the apex. Get on throttle. Straighten it up. Nail the gas and launch yourself out. Little bit of squirreliness there off of those curbs mid-corner, but so controllable. It is so controllable. It is so predictable. It's progressive. It's predictable. It's stable. And because of all of this, you're going to have a platform with which you can be so amazingly consistent. I bet you that I could do 2 laps consecutively that are going to be within 1/10.5, 2/10 of each other. That was a 1:37.499 last time by. We're going to try and do that all over again. And the way that it changes direction at high speed is incredible. Little squirrely there over that first apex of Degner, but no problem. Into the hairpin. Little wide of the apex this time. That's okay. On throttle. Let the rear spin up a touch. Up in a 6th. Pick up the apex here. Throw it in. Back to full throttle between the apices of spoon. On the throttle. Exit. Use all of that concrete on the outside. Up into 6th. Square up the approach into 130R. Watch the white line on the right. See the apex. Throw it towards it. Let the car go out toward the exit curbs. Use the exit curbs. Brake hard. 2nd gear. Apex 1. Swap over. Apex 2. Exit. Full throttle. Come down the hill. Don't run it out too wide. 137.9. All right. We do another mid-37 just to prove the point. Hold fourth. Rev limiter found briefly. And the first sector in this thing is a pure joy. Fuel light. We're back negative on the Delta. Full throttle. Those green lights down in the bottom row, they show that we are negative on the Delta, meaning that we're going faster than our session best. Look at that. You can pick up full throttle again so early. And the car does not care. It is astonishingly grippy. Is it planted? Yeah, it's planted. I wouldn't say that, to me anyway, it feels so planted. It feels stable, it feels consistent, and it's extremely confidence-inspiring. But it doesn't feel like it's just glued. It feels like there is depth to this experience. It feels like that there are nuances of performance that are going on here. I was a little wide on approach there. We're back negative. One thing you don't have is a numerical delta, like I can't glance down and see how many fractions I am up or down. All I've got are the lights. And to be honest, that's okay, because I tend to fixate sometimes on the numbers and puts me off a little bit. So I like that it's minimizing distractions. It's just so consistent. You can drive it smooth and it will just respond in exactly the way you're expecting. And of course in the mirrors you can see that we're spitting flames out the back. It's so much fun. 137.099. Alright, that's consistent. Last time I was a 37.1. So my point of consistency is proven. And this is default setup mind. Is it exactly what I want it to do? Not entirely, but it's pretty close already. I do like the diff to be a little bit more open. Just because it helps me rotate the car a little bit more, getting back on the power. Fuel light on in the car now, 5 liters. So cool. Get a big moment like that. If you tried that in one of the Formula hybrids, you'd have spun it. Probably found a barrier. This thing, it bounces you a little bit. It lets you know, hey, dummy, don't do that anymore. And then you're on your way. It's so good. We're going to jump into the pits here. We'll pick up the limiter at any time now. There's the limiter. Just real quick, I'll show you what a pit stop looks like. We'll add a couple liters of gas just to show that. There we go. Wheels come off, wheels go on. And that's just what it does in the pit stop. But, I mean, you can see already on default setup, straight out of the box, you can see what you're dealing with. You're dealing with an unbelievably stable platform. And really, just this view out the cockpit, I'm running the neck FX through the CSP as well. So you're seeing a little bit more head movement and a little bit different type of head movement than you'll see just by default. But, I mean, this is so intimate. This is just putting you in the zone where it's you and the car and the track and the way the light falls into the cockpit and the steering wheel with all the instrumentation that you've got, the way the hands are moving around. It's just so immersive. It's really putting me in the sort of test pilot role of, okay, it's me and this machine, and what can it really do, and what can I really do? And it's just egging me on to go more and more and more, which is exactly what we're going to do. Right, so back in the pits with us, and what are we going to do here? We have loaded up one of the setups that I'm working on right now. As you can see, I have lengthened the gears a little bit across the board. That is going to allow us to hold fourth gear there into the S's, so that's going to be good. Fifth will now run out at 270, and sixth will run out at 308, which is a little long, but if you're going to be running in a slipstream in a race situation, you might want that. Otherwise, I haven't touched all that much else. Taken a slight bit of wing out, and I think we can probably afford to take out a little bit more, so we'll do that. Brakes haven't touched them. Diff, we've opened it up entirely. And otherwise, haven't really changed anything with the suspension. The rest of it feels absolutely fine. And that mirror angle, which I'll just put it into 22 just so you can see. Not that we really need the mirrors for what we're doing here today, so that view won't be optimal anymore for me, but who cares? And then that's about it. We'll put some gas on board. Now that we've run a few laps, you can see what our estimated endurance is. 7.7 laps or 20 minutes, 32 seconds. So that's cool. Back into the cockpit. We also haven't touched the push to pass yet. We'll show you how that works. Let's bring the car back up. New set of tires, of course. The tires felt absolutely fine at the end of that last run. See, we were setting personal best the whole way. Hairpin. A little bit more wheel spin because the tires are still a little cold. So a touch of understeer here. Right. 130R is still very easy flat. Off we go. Push to pass active. All right, so now you can see the straight line speed really coming in. 300 clicks down start finish. Fourth gear will hold it. There we are. Just a little touch longer in fourth is all we need to stay out of the limiter. Still a touch of understeer. over those exit curbs. Speed building now. Just hurl it into Spoon. Still a touch of understeer, but it's stable and it's consistent. You can work with that. You can see the push to pass has now ticked down to 9. We'll hit it down, start, finish again, and keep watching that number down there. It'll change, and then it'll go red, and it'll go white again when it's ready to use. A little bit of rear locking. Still control it. Push to pass. 136.435. So you can see you got a number 8. It was green when the push to pass was active. Now it's red. It'll stay red for another 50 seconds. We have a 50-second cooldown. The push to pass works for 10 seconds at a clip. And you get 10 shots of it. So 100 seconds total per session. Push to pass works in practice sessions like this is. And it works in race sessions. It does not work in hot lap sessions, so just be aware of that. So we still got a red number 8 down there. When that turns white, we can use push to pass again. All right, that has now gone white, so we can use that once more. Brake a touch earlier here. Keep the car more stable. And there we go, it pays dividends for us. We're back negative. This will be another session best, 136.300. See the green lights there flashing across the top as well when push to pass is active. A little bit of rear locking there into the hairpin, but get him on the throttle again. Yeah. It's so confidence inspiring. It is unreal. I love hurling it into Spoon. A little bit of oversteer now. Love that. Brakes. Second gear, come off of the pedal so you don't lock up the rears. A little wide of that second apex, but no problem. Push to pass active. Come down the hill, on to start finish, 135.705. In-game fuel light. The car's fuel light comes on at 5 liters. We are positive. And I love how you can see those delta lights in your peripheral vision. You don't have to take your eyes off of your target. It's great. Basically, all the LEDs on this steering wheel are fantastic. They all show up very nicely in your periphery. You don't have to look at them directly. just that much more of a help for your concentration. Rear locking, a little bit of front locking. So yeah, you can see that the car can become a little bit unruly. It's not entirely stuck to the road, folks. I push to pass here and see if we can make up any sort of deficit. Yeah, look at that. Changing where you use to push to pass, and you might change your outcome on a given lap. I say might in big sarcasm marks there because, well, kind of made a mess of the last chicane, and now we're negative again. But still not by all that much. Little bit of oversteer there under braking. Just a touch, just enough to tell you that the car is alive. But it's at a time like this in a review where I would normally say, okay, it's time to go on light fuel and quali tires, but no, we don't have that option here. The whole thing is quali tires, because it is the tire you're on. And what a tire it is so consistent. It's got great grip, but it also seems to have great durability. Fantastic. We'll have one more flyer before the car starts yelling at us for fuel. Let's control that rear locking a little bit. On the power, on the push to pass. 136.372. There's a fuel light in the car. Little bit of oversteer. This is about peak performance right here. We can't do anything on this lap. We are no good. Because one thing this car does better than basically anything else that I've driven, makes you feel like an absolute hero. Look at that, we went positive through spoon, or negative. Whatever, it turned green. Don't screw up the brakes. We're still negative. 135.670, session best. And that's about all she wrote before we run out of gas. We'll try to make it back to the pits on full pace. I don't know if we will. 2 liters remaining. It's going to be real close. One and a half. One and a quarter. That's 1 liter. Quarter liter, well, 3/4. Half. One quarter. We make it back to pit lane with just over 1/10 a liter of gas in the tank. How about that? Lets you know the fuel level reading is accurate. And there it is, being able to punch up neutral while you're moving. I like that a lot. Probably like that more than I should. But, yeah, there it is. Formula RSS Supreme. It's special. It's really special. It is. Is it the best car Race Sim Studio have ever made? That's a really dangerous statement to be making because there are so many fantastic cars that Race Sim Studio have made. Basically all of them. And to call this one greater than all, I don't know. Obviously, you've got the Formula 2000 V10. You got Formula 1990 V12. You've got all the Formula hybrids. You've got Formula 79. You got RSS2. You got RSS3. You've got the GT packs, the assortment of those. There's just so much to choose from this company. And every single thing that they give us, they give it the same sort of attention. They give it the same sort of workmanship. And they give it the same sort of pride, really. It's something really special that this company is able to achieve. Everything that they do, it turns to gold. And a project like this, it's been a really long time in the making. And is that a sense of, did they spend too long on it? Because sometimes you get a sense of anything that you do, whether it's a personal project of yours or something that you see somebody else do, whatever. Sometimes there's a syndrome that sort of falls in when something takes a long time and you just kind of miss the mark. Is that the case with this one? Nope, absolutely not. I have the distinct sense that every moment that was spent working on this was necessary. And I get the sense that they've really exploited all of that to the ultimate degree, because what they've done here is, it's a game changer, it really is. You have got not the most complicated model that they have ever made in terms of polygon count, but the refinement in this is just unreal. And all the features in this are just unreal. We can't see this right now, and you can't see it on track, but this exhaust, you can see the silencer, I guess that is. It almost looks like a catalytic converter. I hope, well, these cars may well have cats on them, I'm not sure. But regardless, the exhaust glows orange when you're running out on track. You can see that in replays, depending on the camera angles you want to choose. But there's so much detail here. You can see these lights that are here. These are not just textures that are thrown in. These are modeled, and the lighting array there is modeled after what the real thing is. You can see the lens over those LEDs. You can see the LEDs themselves. I mean, you've got just insanity in terms of the level of workmanship that you have here. You've got, obviously, I mean, the little plastic stays there holding the lens in place are even modeled. It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. You can see the lifting bar underneath the snorkel. You can see the emergency kill rings on both sides. I mean, you got your tire detail, your wheel detail, the chimneys inside. You've got the carbon layup in here for this ducting inside. It's just remarkable what they have done on this car. And, I struggle to find ways to describe it adequately. It's It's just a little bit of everything. And they've thought of everything, and they've looked at it all, and they have modeled it appropriately, and it's just coming together to create something that's really unique, number one, because I don't think anybody really expected them to do Super Formula. But then you spend time with it, and you realize just how good it is, and it's a proper joy to get behind the wheel of this thing. You know, I don't think this is a car that I will tire of too quickly. I think that there's a lot of time to be spent learning in here. I think that there's a lot of time to be spent racing this thing, both offline and online. I think this thing's going to be very popular with leagues because, it's a spec car. The real world, it's a spec series too. But it's just got such a wide performance envelope, and you can drive it at 11 out of 10, and it still won't complain. It'll let you do what you want to do. You can thrash it, or you can drive it sensibly. It's going to be there for you no matter what. And in terms of the performance that you do get, we're not terribly far off of Formula 1 from 20 years ago. I mean, we're talking about that level of performance here. And in terms of real-world Formula 1, in terms of the performance comparison to what you get from a modern car, depending on the circuit, this thing can be within 5 seconds of the 2017 Formula Hybrid. So it's faster than RSS2. It's faster than Formula Americas. It's faster than basically anything. But it's so approachable. That's what you call a master stroke. It really, really is. And I've got to say, once again, hats off to everybody at Race Sim Studio, and just thank you so much for making this. Sure, you're paying €3.80 for it, but is this experience worth €3.80? No, it's not. It's worth many times more than that. I would say at least 10 times more than that. Flight Simulator, you buy the add-on modules for Flight Simulator. They regularly run upwards of $30, sometimes $50 to $60 to even $100. This thing was $4.58. I'd have gladly paid $45 for this. I mean, it's that good. But however Race Sim Studio are able to make that work with their profit margins, I have no idea. But if that's what they want for this to make up for the resources that they expend on it, fine. It's a steal. It's a steal and a half, as are all of their products, I've got to say. But this one in particular, it's so good. It's so good that you're going to wonder how they could possibly sell it for so little. But it's there, and it's remarkable. It's an absolute joy to drive. It's a privilege to drive, I've got to say. And it's just going to give you so much performance that you're not even going to begin to approach its absolute limit on your first run. It's there. It's incredible. Enough gushing from me, though. What is to come in this video, though, hot laps here at Suzuka, both from trackside and onboard view, so you can get a sense of the sounds of this thing. I didn't talk about the sounds really at all, but it sounds good, and you'll hear those sounds in all of their glory without me barking all over them. So stay tuned for those hot laps, everyone. Ferrari Man 601, though, saying thank you all very, very much for watching. Thank you to Race Sim Studio, not only for the product, but for allowing some of us a lot of access into the company and to be able to share our thoughts with you and share observations and, even sometimes offer some assistance in the case of what Mr. Pramata was able to do with this car. And, it really feels like we're part of a community. And I really appreciate it, especially when something like this comes along to show for all of it. It's fantastic. And just thank yous across the board to everybody. It's remarkable. Stay tuned for the hot laps, though, everyone. Ferrari Bound 601 saying thanks for watching. And, of course, we will see you soon.
Oh,